Here we are with a special guest, the gangster badger. Fuck herself, Hannah Wallen. Say hello.
Hello.
So yes, she's joined me here today in the radioactive swamp mire that is Iowa. Not really, but still. And we are.
There's a marsh nearby.
Yeah, there is a marsh nearby, isn't there? Anyways, and the thing, my wife distracts me. And so yeah, I'm gonna interview Hannah a little bit, ask some questions. Kind of a casual thing. I'll ask some questions that'll be random, some that'll be a little more serious, just to liven things up a little bit. Um, First of all, why are cats the type to need dough? Why is that? I think that's a question everyone's wanting to know.
Actually know the answer to that.
Oh crap!
That that stimulates milk production in the mother. She
Ah,
has those little, like I think eight
you're right.
teats along her belly, and when they push on that,
You are right.
for some reason, that gets the milk to come in, and it gets the milk to come
I
out.
figured it
Yeah.
was both.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Yeah, that's what Ale was thinking, but you know. Okay, cool. So we got the first question out of the way. Okay. All right. So, and we're also going to be looking at CBS News of notorious teacher sex scandals. These are the kind of famous ones. I might have done this in a video, or I didn't release the video. I forget which I did, but I've gone over this before, and um, but trying to think. Trying to think how we should do the order. We could. Well, I mentioned this earlier, but we could do like a. I ask you some questions, and then we go on to some of the reading, and then we go back and forth. So we'll try that. We'll go back and forth a bit.
Okay.
Um, my. I'm kind of curious. How did you meet Allison, and how did you guys start the Badgers?
Well, I had started discussing a particular case on Reddit back in, I think I started back in 2010 or 2011. I went through, I want to say, four different accounts that got shadow banned for talking about this case. I refer to it on HBR Talk all the time as the 7 years in hell case because it took 7 years for us to get from the first false allegation to the judge finding the false accuser guilty in a civil case of vexatious litigation and malicious prosecution. So
Jeez.
she's now on Ohio's like list of vexatious litigants.
Oh wow.
And I was talking about that, and I got more and more involved with the men's rights subreddit
Mm.
because that subreddit is actually at the time when I first started, there was only about 3,000 people there, and it grew rapidly. And I started to realize as I was getting involved with that subreddit that there were a lot of men who have gone through what my friend went through in that case, or are going through what my friend went through in that case. And I began writing more about it and everything. And so I saw Allison and Karen. I saw them making posts in there as well. And at first, like with both me and Allison, nobody knew either one of us was female
Mm.
unless they ended up asking or something came up to make an issue of it. Like, I had a post about being a gamer who didn't experience what other female gamers were saying, was happening in gaming,
Yeah.
where the guys are abusive and so on. Like I didn't have that problem, and because it really didn't exist.
Yeah.
Um, and
I can
so
I can attest to that. I used to do back when Assassin's Creed had the multiplayer thing going on in like 2010 or whatever.
yeah,
I played a lot of that, and there was only one time where a guy said anything to a woman at all that wasn't, "Oh, hey, cool, I'm glad you're here," right? But
yeah,
and he was even taking the piss, and he even said, "No, I'm just messing with her," like So it wasn't malicious. It wasn't this constant malicious, and it was just that one dude, that one time. So yeah,
exactly. It's
And
not
even that
common
wasn't even
behavior,
true.
and
yeah,
most of
even
the
then it
time
wasn't
it's
even
not
true.
serious behavior. Like shit talk is shit talk. You do
Yeah,
that in games anyway. But I mean,
yeah,
and I'm more of a tabletop RPG gamer anymore.
Okay.
I haven't been involved in as many online video games, or I've played a few MUDs back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, like as in back before you would see imagery, back when it was text running up your
Yeah.
screen at top speed and you just had to keep up. Um, but in any case, that was one of the times when people were like, "You're a girl? I didn't know you were a girl,"
Yeah.
and that kind of. So it took
I've
an
forgotten
incident,
something.
Yeah.
and this is like a really truncated short version, but it took an incident before we actually ended up um, sort of teaming up as a group,
Uh,
and that was there was another subreddit created after the men's rights subreddit got really big,
uh,
and that was the Lady MRA subreddit,
oh.
and that was created by some some women who wanted to look at men's rights through a feminist perspective,
Oh boy.
and we really didn't get involved in it. They wanted to be helpful and they wanted to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, but they
Okay.
still wanted to do it through a feminist perspective. And their idea of feminism is the nice coffee shop feminism where feminists just want equality, female voting rights, women to get paid the same as men, and all of those problems are actually caused by discrimination, right?
Uh,
And the real world version of feminism is feminists ignoring factors like women are more likely to work part time and women are more likely to take a year off to have a baby and raise the baby partly before they come back to work and put the baby in daycare and things like that.
and
They're more likely to ignore those things and say, well, those women are being discriminated against, or paying them based on that work habit is discrimination because men don't get forced into that work habit like women supposedly do. And
and then we
so,
just blame the phrase biological determinism, and then we're full circle
uh-huh,
around, and no one cares afterwards. Hooray!
exactly.
Progress.
So we really that was none of us had that subreddit much on our radar. We were just it wasn't really the most I had it on my radar was the mods from that subreddit. Occasionally would get into I'd scrap with them in the men's rights subreddit, which is
Mm,
where I spent most of my social media time.
mm,
If I wasn't just talking to my friends and stuff.
mm.
And I got into a lot of arguments with people in that subreddit. And feminists used to invade that subreddit all the time to complain that we were not letting the women talk.
That's
We were
ironic.
creating a hostile environment on Reddit for them by having a place for men to talk.
Yep, that's all it
So
boils down to.
yeah, and then how dare we criticize feminism and stuff? So I get into arguments with them about that stuff, and I always had my facts. Like I had some monster posts that were you have a 10,000 character limit, and I had some monster post responses to some feminists that I had to reply and then reply to myself to get the whole comment in.
Wow.
So like I had essays, I had research paper responses in that, and so I would get these women from the Lady MRA subreddit that would get upset. They would take issues with some of the stuff that I said, or I would take issue with some of the stuff that they said. I had an argument with I want to say it's the one called Veggie Bowl.
Mm.
Um, no. It was Doc Doc.
Mm.
She went by Doc Doc as in DOCH. I want to say DOCH. It was a German name. She was in Germany.
Ah.
And
Duncan?
she
Dog.
had argued that
What were
pregnancy is worse for a girl than jail is for a guy.
What? Yeah,
And
yeah, because men
I went
totally
over
say,
what
let's do that
happens.
again.
Yeah, I went over what happens to men in jail and what solitary confinement is like and stuff like that. And she's like, I didn't need a lecture. She just like, no, it doesn't matter to you what the reality is. You just want to say that. Is that so? That was the kind of stuff that was kind of experiences we had prior.
Yeah.
Then one day, one of the mods from the Lady MRAs who got into an argument in their subreddit with a veteran MRA who's been in the trenches for like 20 years at that point, fighting for fathers' rights, fighting for men's rights, fighting for recognition that men are human and men's experiences are human experiences.
Yeah.
And their responses to those experiences are human reactions.
Yeah.
And he went by Factory too.
Uh,
And she basically came to the men's rights subreddit to tell on him. So a bunch of us went and read the exchange. And what basically happened was one of them asked him a question, and he wrote an article and posted it in response. And it was a very informative article
uh,
about the details of and differences between what's a men's rights activist, what's a MGTOW, what's a pickup artist. You know, like I still refer people to that article today.
yeah.
And like this actually, if I had taken the initiative to run a subreddit and had asked a question like that, and I got a well formulated, complete answer like that, I would like I would feel kind of privileged that this person took the time to explain all that to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this girl got offended
Oh God.
that he was talking down to her, and there was this blowout where all three of the mods basically circled around him and poked at him and prodded him and said nasty things to him until he got rude back to them because they were offended. Their egos were offended.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you know, they basically banned him from the subreddit.
Oh
And
jeez.
when they actually asked us to come in and look at the post, like Karen wrote a post. She wrote a response to what had happened, and a bunch of us talked about it also in response to what happened. They had a post about it.
Uh,
So there were um, two posts in their subreddit basically where there were conversations taking place, and they kept trying to villainize the guy.
mm,
And every response they got from one of the three of us was basically, "You guys are being childish. You guys are being abusive. You didn't give him the benefit of the doubt as a human being. Why are you even here?
yeah.
You know, this is ridiculous." And obviously, you know, I've had experiences with feminists since I was a teenager, early teenager, like junior high school, because I was also a pro-life activist, and
Mm,
I had pig shit thrown in my face at an event once because
Jesus.
feminists on the other side that were protesting against our protests, so they're counter protesters, were mad that we wanted to see some changes in the law to require that, like, if you went in to have an abortion, you had the right to have your doctor's name, so you knew which doctor performed your abortion. So if he engaged in malpractice, you had the same right as somebody who, say, had sinus surgery
Mm,
to sue for malpractice. And that actually, that just protesting for that got big shit thrown in my face.
oh jeez.
Um, yeah. So I started saying, you know, this kind of behavior is just typical feminist behavior and everything. Well, then after that argument, they we started a subreddit that we never really used. It was called FEMRA for female, but also FE for iron,
Oh.
and it was about being strong in the way where you give no fucks about something that doesn't actually hurt you.
Yeah.
And it was essentially, if you need a female only or a female centered subreddit for men's rights activists, go there and talk.
Yeah.
That's not even moderated much, and I don't think any of us actually does anything with it because we were all in the men's rights subreddit. We didn't get involved. We didn't need a separate special place for
Yeah.
girls, and that started sort of at that point. We had the mascot of the honey badger, and we had the term honey badger as used as a term for female MRAs was actually coined by a shrink for men, Dr. Tara Palmatier, who, like, in a conversation about this, and I think it may have had to do with this incident and everything. Factory said, there's something unusual. He wanted to talk about it as something special, but there's something unusual about women who don't have their egos reliant on being first, and
Yeah.
who recognize men's issues, recognize men as human, and are willing to look at the ugly side of femininity as a thing that we don't shy away from recognizing that it exists and has to be treated for what it is, treated as what it is. Like, there's an ugly side to being human, and a lot of it has to do with immaturity, failure to control one's base or impulses and stuff like that. And in most of society, people treat that like it's a male thing,
Yeah.
but obviously it's not, because there are female criminals, there are women who are violent, there are women who kill their children. There's 70% of divorce is initiated by women, so 70% of the breakup of the family unit is initiated by women, and like, that's by feminist design,
Yeah.
but by female attitude.
Yeah, I
And
think I think what you mean by feminist design, that's kind of what I liken to the fatherlessness in the black communities, you know? They're
yeah,
kind of the
yeah,
canary in the coal mine because that's what happens when you bring in incentives for women to kick men out, incentives from the government for them to do that, and you put abortion centers in their neighborhoods at the same time. Like it has this weird trickle effect that seems to occur. So,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely. Having abortion be readily available and be treated as um, an everyday thing, and not a last resort, a thing that you don't want to do, but
yeah,
under some circumstances is unavoidable. Like, if carrying the baby to the point where it's deliverable, uh, and can be saved,
yeah,
would kill the mother, then that's unavoidable. There's
yeah,
you either lose one life or you lose two lives there, and so
yeah,
you do what you can to save one life.
yeah,
But in most circumstances where there's an abortion, it's used for birth control.
yeah,
That's avoidable, right? In fact, pregnancy is avoidable.
yeah,
We have a shitload of different options.
yeah,
But feminists treat abortion like it's a sacrament. You have to have this. And they act like, if it's not treated like it's just an everyday occurrence that women have a right to do, and it shouldn't be considered a remarkable behavior in any way, then they break down women's value of their children, and their value of their families, and it trains women to treat their husbands and their children, or the fathers of the children and their children, if they don't get married, as
yeah,
disposable.
yeah,
But yeah, after we got together, in that way, Allison started asking me to write some articles for A Voice for Men. I think Karen was writing also for A Voice for Men,
oh, cool,
and then Allison decided she wanted to start a talk show, and she was trying to figure out a way to do it easily, and she was looking at Blog Talk, and A Voice for Men was already on Blog Talk, and so they gave us our first, like, platform for Honey Badger Radio,
uh,
until we started using YouTube and other platforms and everything. We still use Blog Talk, but I think Allison has an account with it now.
okay,
Um,
um,
but yeah, so that's basically how we got
cool, cool. That bit lengthy, but that's your specialty. It's totally fine.
together. Yeah, well, and it took. I just condensed about 2 years worth
What?
of Reddit into
I'm being
that
joking
too.
with my
So
guest. I know. Yeah, no, I'm just giving you a hard time. But no, something you mentioned to me in the HBR Discord. You have a lot of symptoms throughout your life. You've had a lot of symptoms of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, correct?
yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
have.
Uh, typically with that you see birth complications, difficulty in giving birth, any issues in that department,
Oh
you know?
yeah, I
Okay.
went through 27 hours of labor before we
Oof.
did an emergency C-section.
Jeez.
Part of that was my son was big.
Yeah.
He was a 9 pound baby,
Oh boy.
but part of that was my body just I could not, like I couldn't, the cervix wouldn't open enough,
Mm,
and my hips wouldn't spread enough,
mm,
and I have a herniated disc in my lower back
yeah.
that made things difficult as well, and so there were other complications too, and this it wasn't as bad for me
Mm,
when I was pregnant as it was for my mother when she was pregnant.
mm,
Her hip would go out.
uh. Well, part of the reason I'm asking is because I've mentioned on my channel quite a few times that I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I was diagnosed when I was about 16.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting because there's kind of this comedic side, where people are like, "Oh yeah, you're just another Hannah. You have all these medical conditions." It's like, but here's the thing: EDS
Well, if
really
you've
does
given
cause
birth,
all
I
those
want to know.
symptoms. Well, I mean, I did give birth to a loaf of bread once, but that's beside the point.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a different story.
different story, yeah. But at this that that's a story for Male Magazine, actually.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh God, my wife, I swear.
What a
Anyways,
shitty publication.
yeah, no kidding. Damn it, Hannah. No, but yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned shortly before we went on that you kind of grew up in a family of smart alecky kind of types, and I did
Yeah.
too, but I try not to do puns as much as I try to do just kind of situational comedy, I guess, is more my bag, but still,
Yeah.
that is, yeah, you're definitely she who puns, definitely. So, but
That's why they call me the pun master in chief in the
yeah,
Discord.
I noticed that. Yeah. Speaking of, where did Oneiro's grip come from? That's an interesting name.
That's a different one. So before I got involved heavily in men's rights activism and
Yeah.
everything, where I was just mostly looking for help for father's rights because of
Yeah.
my husband's situation with his divorce.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know if I would call it a disorder exactly, although I did discover that part of what I experience has a name,
Huh.
exploding head syndrome. Like, and so what it basically is, I have really bad nightmares.
Mm.
And then it is the exploding head syndrome part is I'll be just drifting off to sleep and I will hear somebody yell my name or I'll hear a really loud trumpet sound. That's another one that happens. Or um, there's thunder, but there's not actually thunder because there's not even raining. But more often than anything else, it's the sound that you get when you get a dud when fireworks are going off?
Yeah.
That sound.
Okay.
And I'll wake up and I'll look around and there's nothing. It was just in my head.
Huh.
And so I for years I just thought, well, that's just part of my nightmares, but that's exploding head syndrome.
Uh.
Um, but I have like zombie nightmares. I
Uh.
have nightmares where I'm being chased. I have nightmares where I'm being eaten. I have like actually in the process of being eaten, something is biting me.
This is
And I
why I
think,
don't trust hallucinogens, because
yeah,
knowing my
no, right.
brain.
Like, not so much because the experience itself would be scary, but I'd be
Yeah.
awake and I'd be able to move. And you're paralyzed when you're having a nightmare most of the
Yeah.
time, so you don't get up and act it out.
Yeah.
Although I have, in the past, had issues with sleepwalking, but I've never gone like down the street or anything like that. It's mostly been in the house. But when I have a lot of stress, they get worse. And so I started to blog them because I thought I could turn some of these into horror stories.
Wow.
And I was going to blog them under the name Onero's Grip in the grip of the god of dreams and the god of nightmares, the Greek god of nightmares. And I thought, well, this will be neat, and I could create something out of it, and it maybe people who like horror will like this,
Yeah.
and it'll be entertaining for somebody, and not just something that I had to deal with.
Yeah.
Um, and I learned a little bit of lucid dreaming and everything to basically mitigate the worst uh, aspect of the nightmares. So now when I'm attacked by something in my nightmares, I can make it go away, or I can fight it off, or change what it is, stuff like that. And it's not so bad anymore.
That's
Um,
interesting because I developed lucid dreaming. I'm not even sure at what age, but for a long time, I'll have this moment in the dream where I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't real, and then it's like I do a brain trick or something. I don't even know what it is, but I do something, and then I wake up.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's just this weird sort of, and I had a lot of those loud as a child. I had really bad nightmares with sound involved, oddly enough,
yeah,
like like machines going off and loud explosions, like very sound oriented nightmares. And God, some of them I still remember. That's what's weird about it. But
well, you have connective tissue in your brain too, so
true, true. So it could just be, my connective tissue committing seppuku on the altar of the holy thousand leaf temple.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I do have collagen pills. I just always forget to take them. Like I have so many pills as it is. Oh, speaking of pills, I haven't taken my pills yet. Fuck. Hold on. Okay. Let
Yeah,
me just yeah.
I do the collagen thing with Jello.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm not as much of a I hate pills. I really
Yeah.
really hate
No,
pills.
I do too, but I kind of have to. I
Yeah.
actually just found out recently that my risperidone also helps with autism symptoms. I didn't even know that.
Oh, that's neat.
I thought it was just for like Tourette's. That's what I thought I was taking it for, but which I know you probably wouldn't have guessed, but I do have Tourette's.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I would not have guessed actually.
Yeah.
I always say I don't have Tourette's. I'm just very rude. Um, I try not to be, but
that's that's a weird comparison. I don't have Tourette's. I'm
yeah,
just an asshole. What? Like,
yeah.
Well, at least she's
But I say
honest.
yeah.
on purpose.
I mean, at least you're
I say
honest.
on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's not an accident. I don't have any excuse. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
No, it's fine. But yeah,
it's
I'm.
like my friend. We laugh at all of our disorders.
Oh
She's
yeah.
got
Yeah, me
really
too.
bad dyslexia, so she got a
Yeah.
bumper sticker that said "Dyslexics of the world untie."
That's
It,
funny.
it it took me a while to figure out what it said because
Yeah.
it looked like it was a call for unity. Mine's really mild. When
Yeah.
I finally realized it, she laughed at me.
I speaking of dyslexia, I have this weird. I think it's my nystagmus. It might be my nystagmus, but I'll try and read a book, and I'll end up the word like the lines will move on me, and
That's what she has.
I'll end up rereading the same sentence multiple times. It's very annoying.
Yep. That's what she has. She had to
Uh,
have special test taking precautions because of that when she was
mm,
in school. So she was in both the gifted and the intellectual disabilities class because of that.
Oh
you're
God.
probably old enough to know the term sweat hog. You're probably old enough.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I actually used to watch
Wait, what?
Welcome Back, Cotter.
Yeah, it was a Cotter reference.
I didn't hear
That show I told you about, Sweat Hogs. The kids who are dumb but smart at the same time.
So you?
Yeah.
Basically me. Like I'm like the smartest and the dumbest person at the same time. Like it's crazy.
Saved by the Bell was actually the whole thing I think was a Welcome Back Cotter reference.
Yeah,
It
pretty
was
much.
it was a cheap copy of Welcome Back Cotter.
It really was.
It was?
Yeah.
Screech was a cheap copy of Horseshack.
Yeah, he even had the same hair.
Yes.
Yeah, no, like although I did love the Puerto Rican Jew, half my family was out altering pants, no, half my family was stealing pants, the other half was altering them. Like I loved that. But anyways,
Yeah.
okay, so we're gonna get to a little bit of the article here, kind of. Scroll past the blonde. and we'll go to Stephanie Peterson, the one right below it.
Okay.
And I'll say this, given the bone structure, 40s, 50s, maybe, probably 40s
Yeah.
or so, but the makeup makes her look younger, which is
Yeah.
kind of what you were pointing out earlier.
Yeah, I would card her for cigarettes.
Yeah, no kidding.
I
Steph,
used to work at a gas station
yes,
for reference for that.
gotcha. Stephanie Peterson, a former middle school teacher, was arrested in February 2018 for allegedly, I love how they always put that in there, having a secret sexual relationship with a 14-year-old boy, police said. The teen told investigators in Volusia County, Florida, that's a weird name, that Peterson, 26, would give him marijuana. Peterson, also
Oh
known as
boy.
Stephanie Ferry, faced 3 criminal counts. Now they don't tell you some of these. It's a very incomplete list. Sometimes they're like, okay, we're not going to tell you how little of the time she actually served, because that's not a pattern that emerges. Um,
Well,
eh,
it looks like it links to an article that was from before her hearing.
oh, okay.
So it doesn't. Yeah, she had just been arrested in 20. Her hearing is 2021, and with COVID happening last year, sometimes it can take up to 3 years for something like this to play out. But
And
it's possible that she's. Nope, she got 3 years in prison.
okay.
3 years.
Wow, 3 years
Be beheaded.
for rape and marijuana to a minor, which I believe is also a crime in and of itself. Distribution
Yeah.
to a minor, yeah. Um, Interesting. Now the Sarah Jones, the one right below it with the Bengals outfit, I've actually met Bengals cheerleaders. I've actually met them.
I had a high school friend who dated one.
Oh, okay. Well, and what was weird is that one of them looked like her, but a lot shorter, like a lot shorter. Like she was a tiny human being. I don't know how,
Yeah.
but anyways, actually, I kind of want to. Actually, let's skip down to Deborah Fay because that was a really popular case. Um, and oh boy, golly and gosh, uh, if I remember correctly, this is the one where the lawyer was like, "She's too pretty to go to prison." Like,
Yeah.
like that would ever hold up for a dude, even if it was Johnny Depp. Like, like fuck.
Well, it didn't. Because
Yeah,
he
it
won.
didn't.
Too
Yeah,
pretty to go to prison. That's
yeah.
just an insane art. Can you imagine? Like there was that inmate, that mugshot that went around where all the women were like, "Oh, this has to be the sexiest guy in the prison system," and like we made fun of that so bad.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine his lawyer going, "He's too pretty to go to jail."
Yeah. Just Chad Thundercock himself with the giant chin and the floofed hair. Like he's too much of a man to go to prison.
Because
Yeah.
those are always great.
Yeah. Like and by the way, I think speaking of, I think Brian stole my gag because I used to do this gag on my channel. Because I've been talking with Brian off and on for quite some time now, and I've been doing this gag on my channel where I basically act like I'm the patriarch.
Yeah.
And I've done this to feminists. I would actually be like, okay, well, you believe in the patriarchy? Oh, so do I. Me and my 7 brood mares, all named Dale. I sold 3 of them into chastity because why not? They're just brood mares after all. And then they would look at me like I grew a 3rd head and like sucked Satan's cock in front of a chapel. Like they just like it was crazy. Like So, but
Same thing happens when I call other women cupcakes.
yeah.
But we get accused of they get accused of being patriarchs, and I get accused of being a handmaiden all the time. So we decided to just make a gag out of it. Honestly,
Yeah.
it's if they're gonna, it's just like the men's rights activist moniker.
Yeah.
Like nobody came up with that. We didn't
Yeah.
come up with that. That wasn't something like a bunch of guys got. We're gonna call ourselves men's rights activists.
Yeah.
And then everybody joined because that sounded so cool. We started talking about issues like fathers being denied custody of their children and men being jailed for things they didn't do and the lack of due process in their cases and stuff like that. And feminists started using the term men's rights activist as a derogatory term, as a
Yeah.
slur to make fun of us for talking about the issues. And we were like, well, if that's what you're going to call us, then that's what we'll accept that label. You know, tell us what's wrong with doing those things that we're doing, and you know, or deal with the label.
Yeah.
But you're right. This teacher was, oh geez, the
Like,
charges were actually dropped.
yeah.
The prosecution in Florida dropped charges against Deborah Fay, a former teacher who admitted having sex, not raping, having
Yeah.
sex with a boy who was then 14 years old. Um, they reignited a debate about whether society is willing to tolerate sexual misconduct if the aggressor is female, and as in LaFave's case, attractive.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Well, a lot of the people on this list, if you just scroll down a little or up and down or whatever, like Alejandra Vera, I'm assuming given the Hispanic visage, but I mean, you know, the makeup, the low cut dress, the long hair, the you know, the eyebrows,
Yeah,
all that stuff. Like that's women. That is kind of did Cato say that? I'm trying to think because I remember there being a quote about like women's mask is the guise of beauty. If I remember that quote
yeah.
correctly.
You
Um,
know, what pisses me off about that is I have a friend who is a teacher
uh,
who is very voluptuous, and she buys clothing specifically for necklines that cover her chest.
okay.
Right? She practically has like her cleavage goes all the way up to her collarbone.
Oh
Like
wow.
it's her boobs are huge. They're probably about as big as your head.
Oh god. And I'm
Like
6'10", so that should say something.
That's
like she's a big
disturbing.
lady,
That's disturbing.
big beautiful woman, right?
Yeah.
But she's got huge knockers,
Damn.
and she
Big
covers
beautiful
up the
woman.
cleavage
Hmm.
because she's
Beautiful
working
woman.
with kids.
Okay. Well, at least she's modest about it. I mean, that's good.
And here we have these women, like this woman's cleavage is voluptuous, but she's also wearing. You can tell from the way the curvature is. She's wearing a push-up bra.
Yeah.
They're not that big. She could wear an ordinary bra and a regular professional looking
Yeah.
Really?
shirt or top, and you wouldn't see her cleavage at school.
Yeah.
But I will bet she does not do that.
Probably not. So this is Texas. Now here's what's okay. Court documents allege Vera had a 9-month relationship with a 13-year-old male. So that means he was probably 12 when this happened.
Yeah.
Student who authorities say impregnated her. Authorities say impregnated. I like focusing on the one word that changes the entire fucking paraphrase. Like that's just my
In
thing.
other words, she might be claiming that this kid did not, the relationship did not happen, and this kid did not impregnate her and all that.
Yeah. Well,
They don't link to a story for this one either.
yeah. I mean, let me put it this way: if a woman ends up pregnant and she's under suspicion of seducing and raping, let's call it what it is,
Yeah.
a 13-year-old child, then and she doesn't have a boyfriend and she just magically ends up pregnant, wouldn't that be suspicious?
Oh, definitely.
You know
It'd
what I
be
mean? Like,
suspicious. Like I would say that so this she turned herself in on June 2016. So
yeah,
on I had to look up her name. Uh, Bud Space says she was sentenced to 10 years in prison for having a long-term sexual relationship with a 13-year-old student who impregnated her. So initially, she apparently denied it, but now she's not denying it.
oh, okay,
And I guess 10 years in prison. Well, at least she actually got prison time.
yeah,
The really sad thing for and she wore a totally different shirt to court. She had a button-down shirt with a collar, that
Uh,
went almost all the way up to her chin.
isn't that like a childlike affect? Isn't that what that is?
Yeah,
Kind
but
of.
it's also, hey, look, I can be modest, but that just makes it all the more egregious if she wasn't at school.
Yeah, true. I mean, I don't know when the picture they show us. I don't know when that one was taken. It looks like it was taken at like a club or at home or maybe like the background seems
Yeah, it's
kind of
hard to
dark.
tell.
So yeah, it's hard to
I know
say.
one thing. If I was teaching school,
Yeah,
there would not be any sexy pictures of me anywhere online
yeah,
because I wouldn't want my students to find them. I
fair.
wouldn't even for a moment want to deal with a student having a crush, and I would want to be able to, if that ever happened, which probably would have been unlikely, but if it had ever happened, I would have wanted to be able to deal with it without having that in as part of the issue. So it
Yeah.
makes it easier to say, hey, you're really asking for a shit deal here, and give the kid a discussion that would help them understand why you're not going to do what they want. But
Scroll down a bit to Brianna Altus.
yeah,
Uh, kind of Asian woman, red shirt. A bunch of are those chains? Are those golden chains? I don't know what that is, but
it looks like a gold necklace with chain. She looks horrified.
yeah, no shit. All right, Brianna would. I mean, honestly, I'd expect her name to be fucking Wuhan or something, but that's just me. Fucking,
Yeah,
Brianna. But no.
yeah,
Uh,
Jesus
literally
Christ,
who?
Christopher.
yeah, literally who? No. Uh, Brianna Altis, a former ultra Utah. Fuck. Of,
Ultra Utah.
Ultra Utah. Omega Utah. We got to make Ultra Utah a thing. Okay,
Toledo.
former Utah high school English teacher. God, I am dyslexic as fuck. Oh, okay. Pleaded guilty to sexually abusing 3 teenage boys. Now, teenage means underage in this case, by the way, who had been students. Altice was initially free on bail after 2013 arrest, but was jailed after allegations emerged that she continued a relationship with one of the kinder.
This actually was talked about. I want to say this was talked about on Reddit.
Huh.
This woman, I know this name.
Mm.
She played the victim.
Yeah.
She claimed the boy, the first boy, I think, seduced her.
Jesus.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find it. Yes, Salt Lake City.
It's weird how
She claimed
feminists.
he wore down her defenses.
Oh, jeez. It's weird how feminists often talk about, seduction and power and privilege and all that shit. But then they're dead fucking silent about female teachers raping children. Like, they're dead fucking silent about it when there's an actual power dynamic in play. Like, fucking. Like, fuck.
Yeah, this is it. She said, because I remember talking about this. This woman
Mm.
said that she repeatedly refused to decline his advances until he ultimately broke down her resistance. Like that's not how you handle a situation like
What?
that. Again, if I was a teacher, right? So you're a teacher, you have your colleagues
Yeah.
that you are going to see every day in the teachers lounge that you can go to for advice. And if you're a young teacher, there will be colleagues who are female who are older than you. She was 34, so she was old enough to have had some experience with handling students with boundary issues and students who refused to um, basically follow the teacher's orders or obey classroom rules and stuff.
Yeah.
There's no reason why anybody should have been repeatedly um, uh, continually making advances on her after she said no,
Yeah.
because she should have been able to put her foot down and the student should have recognized her authority.
Yeah.
And if he didn't recognize her authority, that means she didn't project enough authority.
Yeah.
But and like even if you're when you're dealing with somebody who is in adolescence and they ask you to do something that is detrimental to their health, You have to be gentle when it's something like that anyway, because you don't want to break somebody's self-image
Yeah.
and say, oh, you're just a kid, leave me alone, or something like that. You do want to get them to understand why it's a bad idea, and they're romanticizing an image of an older woman who is really not what they're thinking, and you're not attracted because you see them as a vulnerable kid,
Yeah.
and you're the mentor, right? And so you have a situation like that. That's the first approach. But if that doesn't work, then you seek out advice from a teacher who's been around longer, or you go to your administrator and say, hey, this kid's in trouble. He's making advances on older women.
Yeah.
He's vulnerable to being taken advantage of by an older woman, and he needs help.
Yeah.
And because that's a situation the school should handle as a vulnerable boy who is putting himself in danger, not a bad boy who is sexually harassing a teacher.
Yeah.
Um, and it's girls do the same thing. Like when I was in junior high, my cross country coach was fairly young,
Mm.
and of course he was a runner, so he was in really great shape,
Yeah.
and he was a handsome young man, and he was very kind and very compassionate, and he was upbeat and fun to be around and everything. He was a great teacher. But I had classmates that just had huge crushes on him,
Yeah.
and like don't stand so close to me crushes.
Yeah.
And he didn't he wouldn't be alone with any of the girls because of that. Like he just had to be, you know, you have to have your door open, you have to have another teacher in the room, you have to have other students in the room. If a girl is hanging back at the end of the day, you gather your things and walk with her out of the classroom, so you're out in the hallway where there's other people. You just don't be alone with a girl.
Yeah.
And the men are that's how they handle that kind of situation in education, because when you don't handle a situation that way, you get in trouble.
Uh-huh.
Something happens. Either there's an allegation, or again, you get a teacher that handles things poorly, or worse, is predatory. Then you end up in jail.
Yeah.
And like the women they don't understand, or they don't care enough to be that proactive with the vulnerability of boys.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm scanning for one specifically. See if I can find that one I told you about with the man, and then the one right below it that had a whole very bizarre comparison in terms of sentencing. If I can find the damn. I remember what the feller looked like, but I don't see him.
Well, the guy, they didn't put his picture. They put a picture of two football players, Mikey Henderson, 32, a math teacher, or
Hold on. Let me scroll up. Mikey Henderson.
oh, I see. They put his university football, a picture from his university football days in there.
Uh,
So that's,
Cool.
yeah, interesting. They must not have
Sorry.
had a
yeah.
mugshot, because they would have used a mugshot if they had it.
Oh, Mikey Henderson. Hold on. Allegedly having further contact with a student in May 2017. High school in suburban Atlanta's Gwinnett County. Math teacher. Let's see if the one below it. And I've noticed that the the sentencing that gets a little worse for women is if they're of a minority, but only
Yeah,
by so much. It's not as drastic as you and I are well aware. It's not as drastic as the gender difference. Holy shit. The minority women still get a better sentencing in most fucking cases compared to men of any race, regardless. And so that's not as drastic, but it is somewhat of a factor, I've noticed. Like
I know
this,
this story too. This Mikey Henderson.
yeah, like this Catherine Runk, the one right below it.
Yeah.
Detroit, of course, Detroit. 15-year-old student was sentenced to 6 to 15 years in prison. Engaged in sexual acts with a teenager in classrooms at Bishop Foley High School in Madison Heights. So okay, she was 30. So 6 to 15 years. I mean, we don't know how much she served, obviously, if she's even out now or not, because I mean, this was 6 years ago, to be fair.
Yeah.
So I mean, still, but at the same time, but I mean, maybe half caste, maybe. I'm not entirely sure on the race. Maybe. Maybe. Does she seem kind of half black? Kind of? Kind
It's
of?
hard to tell.
Yeah. A little bit. I mean, she's got a natural tan, so I mean, but it's as Brian would call it, cream in her coffee, kind of, as Brian would call it.
And
But I mean, yeah, like I'm trying to find that one specific. The one with Mikey doesn't have a picture for me for some reason. Um.
yeah, it's he actually. I want to say this happened in Ohio.
uh,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
you're not having like
This is
Vietnam
this was
flashbacks, are
Park.
you? Like,
This was Parkview High School. This is in the Dayton area.
oh shit.
I know. I knew I remembered this.
Yeah.
Like this was. I wonder if there was something about it in Dayton Daily News. There must have been. There were two teachers from Dayton. One was from Parkview, and that was the guy, and then the other one was from either Kettering or Centerville, which are south of Dayton proper.
Yeah.
If it shows up. There's been a few teachers in the Dayton area schools actually that have been accused.
Uh, uh, trying to find the one I specifically, because I remember seeing this one dude, and then right below it was a woman, and I know it was on this list, and the woman got like 5 times the crime and 1/10 the sentence. But I'm not
Yeah.
finding those pictures for some reason. But I remember that being a thing on this where
I remember seeing it too.
yeah, Ale saw it too, but like, again, that holy crap. 5 times the crime. 5 times. The dude did one case of rape to a minor, and she did five cases of it, and he got 10 years in prison. She got 1 year in prison.
Yeah, and there's some of it is different jurisdictions,
Yeah,
but a
fair.
lot of it is judges are hesitant to put a woman in jail for sex with a teenage boy,
Yeah.
and if the boy is older than 13, they look at it as a minor misconduct. But if they had a man of the same age, they would look at it as rape, and it's really egregious the level of tolerance that especially older judges have for sexual abuse of teenage boys by adult women. And the smaller the age difference, the worse it is too.
Yeah.
But if you go through teacher education and you have a professional license for working with young people, it's different than say a rando, somebody who never moved out of her parents' home
Yeah.
and is just on the other side of college age with somebody who is just about to graduate high school versus a teacher with a professional license who is educated in child psychology with a junior high school student
Yeah.
that is her student that she's supposed to be mentoring. And I think judges fail to recognize the level of exploitation and abuse that is involved in an adult woman engaging in any kind of untoward behavior like that with a vulnerable student, and in particular a student over whom she is a mentor.
I found one, Stacy Schuler. I found one that had the 4 years in prison, but was reportedly granted release in 12 after serving about a year. With 5 students in 2011.
Yeah.
According to
You know,
the
genuinely, what needs to happen is there needs to be a level of standards
yeah
that are just imposed on judges for this, where they need to figure out whether they think people who do this, male or female, are disturbed and need treatment,
yeah
or people who do this are predatory and need punished, and they need to have the same standard for men and women.
yeah.
And it's going to have to be something where either the state steps in and says you can't take into consideration the femininity of the of the accused, and you can't take into consideration all these tears and, well, this woman is too pretty to go to jail and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have to look at the details of the crime, and these details have to result in these considerations.
Now, I'm not saying we should, but there was a founding father, I forget which one, might have been Hamilton, who said, "We will not have true liberty until you can swing a judge from a tree." Fun little quote for the folks at home.
We do have actually we don't necessarily have the death penalty for judges unless they murder somebody.
Yeah.
But we do have a system where you can complain about a judge. You can who do you report to for that?
Yeah. Good question.
Because there is such a thing as judicial misconduct.
Yeah.
It's rare. You can file a complaint of judicial misconduct or judicial disability where a judge should have recused himself but didn't. And you can actually go to uscourts.gov and find how to do that. And there's the one problem is it can be used by vexatious litigants against judges that are doing their job.
Yeah, no shit.
And of course, the other problem is there should be more protection against retaliation when the individual is not a vexatious litigant. So there should be repercussions if somebody files, a complaint of judicial misconduct and there's zero evidence of judicial misconduct.
Yeah.
But there should be protection against somebody if they file a complaint and there is some evidence. No matter how the outcome ends up being, that person shouldn't be able to be punished for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely need to be able to recall judges, definitely.
Oh yeah, you can recall judges too, yeah.
Well, we do, but when was the last time that fucking happened? Like, I mean...
that's the sad part. So you remember the Brock Turner case?
Yes.
By the way, Brock Turner is also from the Dayton area.
Oh, wow.
But he lives in the Dayton area, I should say. I don't know if he grew up here. But
I really hope he ain't being, like, fucking terror attacked and shit still, because that was fucked.
It was bad. He came back here and people showed up in his neighborhood, which is a residential neighborhood. He doesn't live, like, in a downtown apartment surrounded by businesses. Okay. He lives in a residential neighborhood surrounded by other people's houses. Wow. And some of those people have kids. But the people who were protesting against the outcome of his case actually did get his judge removed.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
But the judge did his job based on the evidence. Like, that's...
And that judge, like, people think Brock Turner was convicted of rape and he only got 3 months in prison.
Yeah, no.
That wasn't true. He was convicted of sexual assault, but he wasn't convicted of rape. Yeah. And it wasn't because sexual assault is what rape is in California. It was because he was not charged with rape. And then the details of the case were such that while the jury found him guilty of the charge, the judge believed him in regard to his having obtained consent. And so you had basically a drunk teenage college student and a drunk adult college graduate at a party wander off toward his dorm room or his room at a frat together to go have sex.
Yeah.
And they stopped and they got started in an alley on the way there.
Uh-huh.
And in the process, she passed out. And he was convicted of sexual assault because he was too drunk to notice when she passed out.
I don't exactly know the positioning of everything, but from what I gathered, I thought it was that he was, down below trying to do his thing, and she passes out, he doesn't even notice, and then these two
Right.
Nordic fellers pop out of the nearest bush and like, oh shit, you, and then he's like, oh fuck, like, because,
Yeah, these two guys came along walking through the alley. They saw the couple on the ground, and
Yeah.
they immediately attacked him.
Yeah.
They immediately made assumptions about what was going on. They attacked him, and chased him and beat him up.
Yeah.
And then called the cops and said that he was raping this girl. They took her to the hospital. She woke up in the hospital. And she claims not to remember the night, but then she gives a lot of details about the night that took place during parts that she couldn't remember.
Yeah, basically.
So, yeah, it's her victim impact statement doesn't mesh with her testimony very well.
Well, that's what I was explaining to Ale the other day because she was asking about it. A lot of, and it's weird, these kinds of high-pack cases, you typically see the woman involved either changes her story 5 or 6 times, or there's some weird, like, we don't really know the details, and there's a lot of assumptions, and all anyone needed to hear was 2 Nords found a dude raping a chick. That's all they needed, and case closed, end of shut, do not pass go, do not collect 500 mullahs. Instantly go to fucking prison, fuck you up the ass in hell, all that shit. Like,
and of course, those guys testified that she was unconscious because if everything happened the way it happened, but she was conscious, then what actually that turns out to be, what that defines it as, is they came across a couple having sex in an alley, and they chased the guy down and beat him up.
Yeah.
That makes them assailants.
Yeah.
So they're going to stick to their story.
Yeah, no shit. That, and I've been meaning to make like a post about this, or maybe like I might do a video about it, but what is it with Dick Wolf and making the fat white dude autistic virgin loser the terrorist? What is it about that show specifically?
When he was in high school.
Yeah, probably. God, like, and his co-producer Speedweed. Jesus fuck. Like, just my folks like that show. SVU, they like that show and stuff. And there were whole episodes where I was basically telling them, okay, this is what really happened. And they're like, okay, why did they say that in this show again? I'm like, I have no fucking clue. Like, because they know I actually study, actual cases of this shit. I've, always been kind of, I mean, I think part of it's because of my childhood, perhaps, but I don't know. Something about depravity has always, like, it just makes me wonder why. Because I see humans on the average, I know I sound like a fucking vampire or something here, but I see people on the average just milling about their day, trying to get along, trying to do what's best, what's right, and then there's like this deep-seated, primordial, in the back lizard brain that we still have attached to our upfront monkey brain, and it's just fascinating watching all that happen. Like, for example, if we brought back public beheadings, we'd probably put that shit on pay-per-view. I'm just saying.
That's the kind of thing that people would actually pay to watch that. It's really
no
awful
shit.
too, because the truth is, there isn't really a government enough for the populace to trust them with any kind of death penalty.
Yeah, unfortunately, here's what's weird about me specifically. A part of me wants to be pro death penalty because if you've abused 500 fucking people, there needs to be something worse than three square meals a day and cable. There should be something worse than that, you know? Like,
I think if you go through and you look at the histories of sex abusers in general,
yeah,
you'll find some something that actually broke that person.
yeah,
Like their brain
true,
is broken.
yeah.
And when I look at that, I'm like, well, let's punish this person for having a broken brain. I don't
Actually,
think it fixes the problem.
there was a account of public execution in like the 1700s or so in France, and the guy nowadays we believe that he either the one who committed the crime, he had like a mental disorder, or he was
Yeah,
like he really, because he would say random things that made no sense and like didn't fully comprehend reality. It was, and it's just weird to think of, like, okay, he committed a crime where he hurt people, okay, granted, but this dude's out of his fucking noodle. Like, how that, and then the execution specifically was, holy crap, like it involved hot metal, let me put it that way. But no, and like, I don't know, like, a part of me is fascinated with history in general because I've always been big into history, but looking at the history, because I've actually done some study into it just out of, honestly, I was bored at the time, so I just wanted to learn something weird and kind of fucked up, so yeah, to be honest. But again, like, just looking at the history of, you know of executions, I honestly have to agree with what you say, that I don't think we can trust our governments enough for them to get to do it efficiently and without horrible consequences. I think you're right.
well, and the thing that actually convinced me, because I was looking at it for a long time when I was you know when I was a teenager, I thought, well, there's no way we can get around this. There are some people who are just so dangerous that the risk of them getting out of prison is too high
Yeah,
to let them live.
yeah,
But the truth ends up being that the death penalty is disproportionately used on people with intellectual disabilities who
yeah,
commit one crime in such a way that they can be viewed as extremely violent people, and then are never a threat to anybody else again,
yeah,
or people with mental illnesses who, with treatment, can become not dangerous to anybody, um, or people who just can't defend themselves but actually turn out to be innocent. And sometimes it's a combination of all three of those. And
I mean,
there was this one case where there was a guy whose conviction was based almost entirely on circumstantial evidence.
oh god,
He must be guilty because he was there.
yeah,
He did it because he was there, and we can't prove anybody else was there, so he's holding the bag.
yeah,
And he was intellectually disabled. Um, he There wasn't evidence that he actually committed the crime. There wasn't a smoking gun. There wasn't evidence of his he didn't leave physical evidence of brutality, that this is his handprint, this is his
yeah,
teeth marks or anything like that. He left a footprint in blood, which indicated that he was on the scene after the murder
yeah,
happened.
after,
Um, it doesn't necessarily mean he was actually present during the murder.
yeah,
And he was convicted and he was given the death penalty. And he ran through his appeals and was executed.
jeez,
And the thing that pissed me off about the case the most was after this guy died screaming and continually professing his innocence and begging to be taken away, the reporter wrote about how difficult that was for the guards.
yeah, I bet,
And I have sympathy for the guards,
yeah,
but I don't have as much sympathy for the guards as I do for the guy, because
yeah, no shit,
what if he actually was innocent? What if he, just because he was the only person they could prove was there, doesn't necessarily mean that proves that he committed the crime.
yeah,
And it was a horrible story, and I've always been disturbed by it. And I started researching um, a couple of different things, because the other thing that they said was the paralytic didn't work fast enough, and
oh
that was
yeah,
part of the problem. Well, there's three when they do a lethal injection. There's three parts of it. There's a paralytic. There's an anesthetic, a general anesthetic,
Yeah.
and there is a then there's a poison,
Yeah.
and it stops your heart. And the paralytic and the general anesthetic work separately.
Yeah.
So when I was 16, I guess 15, I had scar tissue that I had to have removed. I had scar tissue on my genitals that I had to have removed, and I had to have it removed because it was in a location where my clothes would tear it, and then I would get more scar tissue there, and the piece of scar tissue just kept getting bigger and bigger, and more interfering with my clothes. So I had to have it removed.
Mm.
And they did it under general anesthetic.
Okay.
And with a paralytic. And it's the same kind of drugs they use during lethal injection, except the poison isn't administered. You have surgery.
Yeah.
So I get the general anesthetic, and then after you're unconscious, they give you the paralytic. And when you wake up, you're supposed to slowly come around after the surgery, and they keep you under through the surgery. And you wake up stitched, and then you get pain medicine, and the paralytic wears off last, so you can't hurt yourself. And I had a high metabolism. Like when I was in high school, I probably ate about 15,000 calories a day.
Yeah, I can attest to that. That might be the EDS, to be fair.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I graduated and I got old enough and I tried alcohol, it did nothing because it went through me so fast.
Right? Yeah, me too.
So they give me the general anesthetic, and I go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I get the paralytic, and I wake up, and then the doctor starts cutting.
Oh, shit.
And they didn't know, and I felt the whole surgery. And when I woke up, like from the paralytic, I had this sense of semi-consciousness. It's like being in what you would call, I guess, twilight, like right as you're starting to wake up from a really deep sleep.
Yeah.
So it was very much like experiencing a nightmare, except I experienced everything the doctor did. I was really fortunate because that was a surgery that maybe took 20 minutes. And I got cut, and then there was some trimming that had to happen because sometimes scar tissue, when it grows out and it grows in. And then I got stitched up.
It wasn't an atrophic scar,
all
was
of it, right? Well, I read about this with the death penalty. So if something stops your heart, you are experiencing a heart attack.
Yes.
So the death penalty, there's the paralytic and the anesthetic are supposed to prevent the combination of pain and seizures that can happen with a heart attack.
Yeah.
So if the anesthetic doesn't work and the paralytic does, then the person dies with the full experience of a heart attack.
Oof.
But no anesthetic, nothing to keep them unconscious.
Jesus.
And they can't move, and they can't tell anybody, they can't cry out, nothing. And with general, now they're aware now that this happens with general anesthetic sometimes, and they monitor people now in surgery. So like if I were to have a surgery today, there would be somebody monitoring my breathing and my heartbeat, and if I started showing signs of distress, that would indicate to them that the anesthetic was wearing off.
Okay.
If you don't necessarily pay attention to that in a execution, so we look up botched executions.
Oh, jeez.
That's one thing, and then the other one is that there are a pretty sickening number of people who have been fried to death, not having their system stopped by electrocution, but fried to death by execution, and it's incredibly painful. And so my opposition to the death penalty is the combination of there is no way for us to have punishment that isn't cruel and unusual in the death penalty.
No, yeah, that's
And
pretty
then
accurate.
it gets botched too often. But then at the same time, we also have innocent people who are being executed, and that should never happen.
Now, if you read historically, like execution methods such as breaking against the wheel, you ever heard of that one?
Yeah, I've heard some horrific ones.
Yeah. Breaking against the wheel is definitely one of them. But there are a lot of people who, and I'm just saying, if it happened now, it had to have happened back then, falsely accused, right? It was common in Rome for men accused of rape to have their testicles crushed. And here's the problem: there's no cameras back then. And unless there's an eyewitness following you 100% of the time, you're boned, Jack. You know?
That's just it.
Yeah.
If a rape allegation is tried on the basis of whether or not the guy can prove he received consent, as opposed to whether or not the woman can prove or can argue that she said no, resisted, did something to let him know that she didn't just not consent, she was attempting to refuse. So basically, mens rea, he has to have intent to contravene her will, her refusal for it to actually be rape. If that's not the standard, you end up in situations where he said, she said, and she lied, and he gets punished.
Yeah. Jeez.
And
I mean,
my
actually,
opinion, even based on my experiences,
Yeah.
my opinion is if you have he said, she said, and you can't tell who lied, it's better that there not be a punishment.
Yeah, I agree in that circumstance. I agree. That I tried to ask this earlier, but I must have forgot. The scar you mentioned, it wasn't like atrophic, was it? Did it scab a bunch? And because I had something akin to that. I'm trying to see if this is an EDS thing. Might be an EDS thing.
So it stuck out from the flesh.
Okay.
And it stuck out in a way where it was floppy, I guess you could say.
Okay.
It stuck out from the flesh, and then anything it caught on and pulled on it, it was like pulling, if you had a piece of paper where you had cut a square out of it, so you had a corner that was a reverse corner, right?
Okay.
Into the paper instead of the outside corners of the paper.
Mm.
And you grab a hold of that and pull, it would tear at that corner. And it did that over and over again. And all it took was for it to tear a little bit, and I would grow a significant amount more scar tissue.
That's very akin to the one I had right below the glands, which is why I believe I was sexually abused. Actually, that's one of the main pieces of evidence that I have that make me think something definitely happened. My situation's kind of weird because I remember my feelings at the time, but I don't quite remember what happened. You know what I mean? And even though
were you very young?
Yes, I was like 12.
That's part of a lot of times. The younger you are when something like that happens, the harder it is you won't remember the face. You'll remember being scared and being spoken to and having things said to you.
Yeah.
That, what you should do or shouldn't do, or why you should think this is okay when it doesn't feel like it's okay.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I more so remember what happened after that. The very next day, she accused me of doing what I think she did to me, to her, and to another girl that she had a crush on at the time as well. So there's, no one believed it because I was the anemic, pale kid who, I wasn't really anemic, but I was very skinny, had no real muscle or fat on me at all.
Basically,
I was
no one
very
believed it
boned.
because you would have been unlikely to be able to perform the actions attributed to you, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Because I was so sickly and pretty much meek. I mean, I around that time started learning martial arts, and I kept with that through my adulthood for up to a point. Then then my condition kicked in. But and I
it's amazing though stupid some false accusers are, where they'll say something like that and
Yeah.
they'll attribute an action that can't happen or that,
Yeah.
the person couldn't perform.
Yeah, like, and uh, and other times I was falsely accused for like groping and things of that nature. Yeah, the cat has a hairball or something. When that happened, it was always by women that weren't my type. I'm not really into
Yeah.
blondes, for one, and two, they were all like skinny and petite, and I'm into larger women. You know, my wife is a fucking she beast of a woman. Fucking, you know, like, you know, she's
Yeah.
built like a linebacker, and that's why I love her.
So like basically She-Hulk.
Yeah, she's basically She-Hulk. Yeah, she's Viking She-Hulk. Like that's I couldn't ask for a better woman. Like seriously, like
Yeah.
that is
That's awesome.
perfect.
Though.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah,
anyways,
those are beautiful women.
yes, yes, and I have the bestest, the bestest. But yeah,
Wonder Woman women.
yeah. My mother was big into Wonder Woman as a kid. Like she loved the show with what was that?
Linda Carter.
Linda Carter. There you go.
Yeah.
She loved that show growing
Yeah,
up.
that's my Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah.
Linda Carter.
Gotcha. What the fuck happened to her? Like, she just went nuts ever since she got bitten by the
Yeah.
feminism snake. I swear to God.
Well,
She
the
just
sad
went
thing
nuts.
is, so Wonder Woman was a second wave feminist superhero.
Really?
Like that was, there's no sugarcoating that, but she was a superhero created by a man who had a rose-colored glasses view of feminism, and
I thought he had like a fetish thing for dominatrixes and shit.
he did.
Okay.
He had a fetish for dominatrixes, and he
Okay.
also had, I guess the
Bondage and other games on the
the
island.
yeah, the opposite of the rose-colored glasses, I guess, would be the turd-colored glasses.
Oh
He
no.
had a turd-colored glasses view of men,
Yeah. No,
and
that's fair.
but he did create a compelling hero.
Huh?
And she
I like that
had
she fought
personal growth,
Nazis.
she had personal sacrifice. She was
Yeah.
a good hero.
Yeah, good character. But I remember some of the, and they're actually getting rid of a lot of the online copies of these things. So if you have a tangible copy at home, keep the
Yeah.
motherfucker, for the love of God. Keep it so you can show future generations that they played bondage games on the island of Lesbos. I mean, Hippolyta.
Yeah.
Like, you know. So yeah, totally not the Isle of Lesbos. No, no, no. But where no domestic abuse happens whatsoever. No.
Oh no. Of
No,
course
no,
not.
no, of course not. No, no, no. Anyways, it's it's interesting. Like, because I remember looking about the rate of domestic abuse, and the highest was lesbians. I think the second highest was interracial, I believe. If that
Yep,
was,
the highest was lesbians.
yeah,
And actually, bisexuals. If you're bisexual, you're more likely to experience that high level of abuse, and it's partly
yeah,
because you are with partners of different sexes, and so
yeah,
it's a guarantee if the same sex abuse is higher, that people who are with both sexes are going to experience that.
yeah. No. I'm bisexual myself. I'm kind of open about it a little bit, not a
Yeah.
whole lot. So is my wife, but we're strictly monogamous. You know, we're strictly with
Yeah,
each
yeah,
other.
yeah. Well,
And
most bisexual relationships are.
true. I was explaining how you and I are bi, but we're still just you and me.
Yeah.
I'm telling her across the hallway here, but no. Yeah, no. So that, and you mentioned you ran in pagan circles back in the day. Any specific branches or anything by chance, or?
I would call myself an eclectic kitchen witch. So I was
I like
involved
it.
with a couple of different covens that
Uh,
were eclectic covens. I practiced with people who were more into like the Egyptian deities, and I practiced with
uh,
people who were more into the Greek deities, and some who were more into Celtic deities. There was a druid who practiced with us who did not have a druidic circle nearby initially
mm,
when he began his practice, and then found one
mm,
uh, and continued to practice with us.
yeah.
My
The
circle, I was actually in the circle that I was in. We did our SBATs together. That
uh,
was I was a high priestess in that circle.
oh, well.
Uh, but like
Um, oddly
Most
enough,
of what I did was with like the Sabbath and stuff was with a
ah,
bigger circle that was in Lima that I don't know if they even exist anymore.
eh, hard to say, but for example, the wife and I were Nordic specifically. We're in that kind of group, but we're more elder Futhark than younger Futhark specifically.
Okay, okay.
So we're a little more archaic, a little bit, kind of. So we're just old school. We're the old fashioned people, like you know.
I have some friends who are TradCon
Ah,
and who are Celtic TradCon, and then I
oh,
also have a friend who is a Satru. I hope I'm
ah.
pronouncing that right.
Um, actually, I think ale would fit under that classification as well, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I'm I was an elder in some circles, so for a bit, and mostly just because I spent most of my childhood reading about mythos and giant textbooks of mythology and everything, and I like absorbed all of it.
Yeah.
I was the weird kid that on one hand I would be hyper and jump around and shit, and then I would sit down and read an encyclopedia of mythology for like 5 hours straight. I was literally both children. Like
There you go.
yeah, yeah,
Me,
and
I was
yeah.
the kid that sat down and read the encyclopedia for fun.
Yeah, me too. Like I was a big before my nystagmus really kicked in. I was
Yeah.
great into reading. I loved reading, especially mythology and history. Like that was my jam, man. Like I loved that shit growing up. Um,
So I did most of my reading in the top of a tree because the
uh,
other kids couldn't come up there and get me and bug me.
fair,
So
fair.
it's a kind of a silly thing.
Yeah,
But when it came to it, when it comes to religion,
yeah.
my journey has basically been looking for a home in
Mm,
terms of, all right, where do I find a group of people that has the same values that I have,
mm,
that understands deity in the same way that I've come to understand deity, and that has the same set of practices that I have. And I went through a few different permutations before finally settling down, and I'm not going to find that,
yeah,
and it's
basically.
okay to not have that.
Yeah.
And I can go and sit and listen to a minister in a church preach and find fellowship with that group of people on that day, and another day go and sit or stand in a Wiccan circle
Mm,
and find fellowship with that group of people in that day. I could do the same thing in a Jewish synagogue,
mm.
as long as I knew the protocols so that I didn't offend them.
Yeah,
And
basically. Yeah.
as long as I walk into a place that is their main relationship to deity is a recognition of a creator that is a being of wisdom and power and um, benevolence over everything else, that
Yeah.
has a set of ethics and is offended if you are unethical. And
Yeah.
my understanding of most of the religions that I've been exposed to is that at some point within that religion, deity has communicated to humanity that I want you to act with love as your primary guide.
Yeah.
So you love your creator and treat creation based on that love, and love your fellow human being as a fellow creation of the creator.
Mm,
And as long as I can find communion with that or community with that within a religious environment, I'm comfortable in that religious environment. If the
yeah.
religious environment is more about condemnation and anger and pain
And
and
control. Yeah.
selfishness, like you run into even some satanic cults have been about finding love and community. But I've run into Satanists who are about taking and having and um, no connection with the people around them and stuff like that. Those people are scary to me because
Yeah.
it's a isolationism that is well beyond just being non-social.
Yeah.
So that's basically where I ended up with religion. I don't have to have a coven or a church
Mm,
or a synagogue or anything else.
yeah.
Um, and I don't have to be atheist either.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to eschew all of that. It's just this is who I am and how I practice and what my guide is in life.
I never really had like an atheist phase or anything, but I did kind of have a phase more so historically in terms of my condemnation of the church, how
Yeah,
they were in the past more so. But nowadays, especially, I'm very pro-Christian. I mean, as long as it's follower of Christ Christian and not well, the Old Testament says, no, I don't care about that shit. Following Jesus, the whole, hey, love thy neighbor, here, have some bread, hey, I got some wine, that kind of dude. That dude I'm okay
yeah,
with. Like, no problems with Jesus, by all means, man. Like. But anyways, I know we're kind of approaching the time you got to get here. Is there
yeah.
any I'll ask you a few things after I close out the video. Is there any final remarks you want to make or questions or anything about anything?
Um, not really. I guess in terms of men's rights activism, that last thing I talked about is kind of the reason I got involved with the men's rights movement.
Mm,
I looked at my husband's situation and my friend's
yeah,
situation, and I realized there was a phenomenon
yeah,
in my country, and then I realized that phenomenon was worldwide,
yeah,
and that is a failure in our recognition of men's humanity,
mm,
and our failure as a species, like male and female, to have equal compassion and consideration for men.
yeah.
So men's human rights are not equally considered. And
True.
it became very important to me that that has to be addressed. People need to be aware of it
Yeah,
so that as a species we can fix that.
yeah. It's
Because I don't think that we will reach the next stage in our evolution, the evolutionary path that our Creator meant for us to take
mm,
until we do that. That
yeah,
we have to have equal compassion and consideration for both sexes. And human rights have to mean all human beings and not this demographic or that demographic.
So
So,
you mean to tell me men's rights was really about compassion? God, I thought it was about beating women. Fuck, I'm in the wrong club.
yeah, that's my goal.
Yeah.
So when I start talking about changing laws, and even when I talk about consequences for lying in court and things like that,
Yes.
everything I talk about is stuff that I want to see handled with an eye toward improving the person,
Mm,
helping the person improve themselves, helping them teach themselves to do better and be better and become a more um, communal part of the community, a more productive part, and not at odds with the rest of the community. It's not about being angry with women or being disgusted. I get mad about things that women do,
yeah, me too.
and I get very upset about different phenomena that
Yeah,
are causes for men's rights issues.
yeah,
But it is all in the end. It all boils down to that important bit.
yeah,
Love your creator and love your fellow creation as you love yourself,
yeah,
and act with love and let love be your guide.
yeah.
So sometimes I don't get as much. I don't become as much of a firebrand as some of the other gals,
Yeah,
and it's because I have that handbrake on the train, on the temper train,
yeah,
that I've learned to put there because I have that goal. If
yeah.
that makes sense.
Totally get you. No, it makes perfect sense. I'm a little pedantic, like as you probably noticed talking to me, off
Yeah.
my videos. I'm a little more quiet and kind of calm and introverted for the most part. But then when I'm doing a video or I'm doing something live, I'm like, you know what? Caution to the wind. Cattens are eating the mice of yesteryear. Let's have fun. Like like I get a little pedantic
Yeah.
with things. But anyways, uh, stay there for a sec. I gotta ask you things, but
Okay.
good having you on. And actually, we'll probably have to do this maybe some other time, a couple weeks from now, maybe if ever you're down. Do this
Yeah,
again.
definitely do it again.
Okay, cool. Swankish. All right, bye bye.